When you think of a game about some dude on a mission to wipe out the gods of Olympus, what comes to mind? God of War, right? What if I told you that there was a game with a somewhat similar premise, but instead of it being a revenge story, it's a mission towards the salvation of humankind? And I'll be bold enough to say this, Kratos does not have shit on the protagonist in this game. This guy manages to do what Kratos did without dying or going back in time. Not to mention that he isn't even a demigod or former god of war, but just a man. I'd imagine that I have your attention now, right? Hopefully not in a
degenerates like you belong on a cross.
in the name of Sony type of way. The game that I've been speaking of is called Apotheon, a Metroidvania title published by an indie studio called Alien Trap back in 2015 that you've probably never heard of. I honestly would have never paid it any mind if I hadn't downloaded it when it was a PS Plus freebie back in God knows when. I played through it one time back then and never touched it again. Until now. In Apotheon, we are placed in the shoes of a normal man named Nicandrios. We know next to nothing about him, as the guy doesn't speak and everyone just seems to acknowledge that he's, well, just there.
Good heavens, Nicandrios! I doused all the lamps and hid up here.
The one thing that we do become aware of is that this dude is the baddest person on the planet, and probably the mascot for Michigan State. If you need someone to kill gods, you come to this dude, not Baldy here. One edge that a certain ghost could have over Nicandrios is the way that he handles though. The controls here are a bit iffy, and by the end of the game, I still wasn't fully used to them. Movement itself works just fine. You're able to jump, climb, swim, crouch, walk, and sprint once you've run a certain distance without any hiccups. All of that works just fine for the style of game that it is and doesn't take any enjoyment out of exploring. But what does stick out as annoying is the combat. You can really tell that the developers mostly had the PC version in mind, since on PS4 you have to aim your weapon, throwable or melee, with the right stick and attack with the right trigger, which translates to the easier way of aiming with the mouse and using the left and right mouse clicks for utilizing your weapons. And let me tell you, analog sticks are terrible for this type of thing. When you go to aim a throwable weapon or a bow at an enemy, good luck hitting them, seriously. Trying to move around and avoid enemies while you're attempting to shoot another person is a damn chore, and you'll more than likely miss even if they're directly in front of you. So if you want to take it from me, swords are decent, spears are awesome for keeping your distance and dealing some punishment, and these big axes are probably my favorite since they bust right through an enemy's guard and normally one-shot them. Not too great combat aside, the game's pretty fun to play, and some fights can be very challenging, specifically boss battles. Despite this, the game can begin to get really tedious, but I feel that it was always nudged along by the story preventing boredom. Nicandrios is from the village of Dion, in an apocalyptic Greece where Zeus has become disillusioned with humans and decides to forsake them by separating the connection between Olympus and Earth. This leads to a world full of chaos, and eventually said world will be nothing but ruins and lack any human life. Surprisingly, the story of Nicandrios doesn't really take place in Dion. Well, the tutorial does, in typical waking up in a burning town raided by bandits fashion. We are quickly enlisted by Zeus' wife Hera to be her champion tasked with defeating the asshole gods, steal their powers, and fix the world. Really, all of this is because she's salty over her husband's inability to keep his PP away from every lady in town. I won't say much else about the plot, but there are lots of things spread throughout the game to keep you thinking. Like these little plaque things all over the place that take excerpts from ancient Greek poems and elaborate pretty heavily on the relationships between God and man. By the end, this even escalates to Zeus' own thoughts on humans and sheds a lot of light on why he's being a big dummy. Especially after the ending, you'll most certainly be left wondering if Nicandrios' quest was really worth it in the end, and if things like this are just meant to happen in an almost cyclic fashion. While the story isn't much to call home about, Apotheon reeks of atmosphere. The feeling that you're the centerpiece of an ancient Greek epic poem never goes away. While this can be seen as a detriment, you become overpowered way too quickly. It's easy to find a lot of the best weapons right off the bat by being curious about a certain area and breaking through a wall or some crates and stuff lying around. But I feel this fits into the themes of ancient Greek myths. The protagonists are usually these overpowered badasses who end up doing something prophesied for centuries that no one else could. And Nicandrios is definitely one of these people. Throughout our onslaught of Olympus, we are given some rather nice background music to accompany us. Be it some explorative pieces, desolate and sad ones, or absolutely intense and badass music, Apotheon's soundtrack never disappoints. One thing I will complain about though is how earlier in the game, the music seemed to have trouble looping, I guess. The track would play, but then there would be a long gap of silence before it started back up. Maybe that was just my PlayStation being a shit or something, since the game did crash about 3 times during my 8-hour playthrough. Apotheon also shows that it doesn't need flashy realistic graphics to be absolutely stunning. Surely this video does the game zero justice, considering the fact that I'm using footage captured from my PS4, and as you can tell, the console's captured videos are horribly compressed and butt fucking ugly. This game does do something totally unique regarding its visuals, as they are based on black figure style of ancient Greek pottery. Honestly, with the way that the game is presented, it reminds me of some of the scenes in Hercules with animated vases, which I can't show because Disney will zuck me. Most characters in the game look pretty much the same, especially the enemies, but they are all really cool to look at in motion. Special enemies such as these giant Cyclops dudes and the gods themselves are dead on accurate with how their appearances mirror those from their real life artistic depictions. Each area in the game has its own look and feel, along with a multitude of creatures and animals to fight. The areas are all connected to separate hub locations that include lots of civilians and some shops to replenish your constantly degrading weapons and refill your item and crafting stocks. The hubs are quite fun to explore and there are lots of secrets hidden about, but my favorite thing about these areas is how the people around react to you. At the beginning, of course, they have no clue who you are. During the middle, they're wary of your actions against the gods, and by the end, just about everyone wishes death upon you. Aside from the hubs, there are several other areas that feel like the personal little pocket realm of their respective gods. The ones that stuck out to me the most were Ares' realm that sort of acts as a gauntlet leading to each objective, and is pure chaos since it's a massive free-for-all against tons of Ares followers. And Athena's weird little labyrinthian type thing that she had going on, being the total opposite of Ares' place and seeming very puzzle-oriented. Sadly, the final area of the game kinda dropped the ball. I won't say much about it due to spoilers, but if you play the game you'd agree with me that it should have felt more desolate and empty, but The Last Stand sort of feels okay. And I think that you'd also agree that it was way too long. There are still so many things that I want to talk about when it comes to Apotheon, but I feel that it would honestly ruin the game for you. I want you to experience all of the charm and everything that the game has to offer from a spoiler-free point of view. While it isn't as deep or good or fun as classic Metroidvanias like Symphony of the Night or newer ones such as Hollow Knight and Guacamelee, Apotheon is a damn good title that I found myself losing track of time with. It can feel like it drags on at sometimes, and I can honestly see why anyone would think that a lot of the game's levels is sorta samey, but in the end, this game is worth its $20 price tag. You get a decent amount of game with it. It took me about 8 hours to finish, and there are a couple of intense difficulty levels to encourage replaying. Even if it doesn't stand out from a gameplay perspective, Apotheon is sure to be memorable. Thank you all so much for watching, and if there's a game you'd like me to take a look at, you know what to do. None of this would be possible without all of you. Stay awesome. As always, until next time.